Hello YouTubers, my name is Frederick Lopez and you are on a new episode of The Final Cut. Today I'm going to be reviewing the 1981 sequel, Halloween 2. Now there's been a lot of horror movie sequels, even beyond a second installment, all the way to 6, 7, 8 reboots, whatever. But I feel that this is one of the strongest horror movie sequels, especially as a follow-up for a second film. Um, the Halloween Now, this takes place after the first Halloween, and I'm just going to give a brief history, synopsis, and my thoughts, and what I think about the film. The first Halloween was a massive success. It started the whole slasher genre in the late 70s onto the 80s. And Halloween really borrowed a lot of Alfred Hitchcock elements. It had a feeling of Psycho. There's a lot of suspense and thrills without the gore or sex or language. It was just based on suspense and thrills, really. It was an old-fashioned horror film set in a modern era at that time. So, upon a sequel, John Carpenter originally wanted an anthology series. Him and Deborah Hill wanted Halloween to be an anthology series, and they felt that the first film was really a standalone picture, even though Michael Myers got up at the end. So when it came time to make the sequel, he felt like writing the script. He originally thought that he didn't earn enough from the profit that Halloween made. And even to this day, he says he didn't earn the money he should have with the success of Halloween. So he wrote Halloween 2 as a way to kind of get back those debts he was owed. And it turned out to be a harder process for John Carpenter. A harder process to write a sequel, and supposedly it got so bad that to get through the script he drank 6 packs of Budweiser beer each day until the script was done. And that may be what led to story issues and the overall tone and feeling of this. Halloween 2 is directed by Rick Rosenthal. It stars Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode, and Donald Pleasence is back as Dr. Sam Loomis. The Shade is not played by Nick Castle in this one. It's played by a person named Dick Warlock. He's played the Shade in this, Michael Myers, in this film, but he's mostly known as a stunt coordinator and works on stunts in many films. He has a large list of IMDb credits. But that came about because they're looking for another actor to play Michael Myers, and he just saw the Michael Myers mask lying down on a table by an office. He put it on, walked to the producer's office, didn't say a word, and then asked, "Can I play Michael Myers?" So I guess it had an effect. He does a good job overall, but he doesn't move like Nick Castle, so in a way it already feels like it's different from the first film. And the fact that it's a little bit after a couple of years, even though it takes place right after. But I must say that this is a good sequel that takes place right after the original. So, going on to that, what is Halloween 2 about? Well, pretty much it starts off with Michael Myers leaving. Laurie Strode's injured from her fight with Michael Myers in the original, and she's taken to Haddonfield Hospital. And Jamie Lee Curtis actually gets top billing in this, but only appears in the film for like 25 minutes approximately. She doesn't get much to do as a character of Laurie Strode until the third act, until the very end. But pretty much it takes place in the hospital there, and everyone is looking for the Shape, Michael Myers. He's still on the loose. He's killing people right out of the gate. So Donald Pleasence as Sam Loomis must search for him before Halloween night is over. And it's really great. It's more about, they even say this on the cover, from the people who brought you Halloween, more the night he came home, and it is a lot. And there's certain revelation of why he's after Laurie Strode. Make a long story short, he starts killing people in the hospital, and him and Laurie Strode, along with Dr. Sam Loomis, has to fight him in the ultimate battle, to the end, to the death, so to speak. And that's kind of like a brief summarization. Now, this is going to contain spoilers now, so if you haven't seen this film, it's going to be a spoiler right now. So yeah, you find out that Laurie Strode was actually Michael Myers' sister. That basically changed their name and didn't mention that. He killed his sister in the beginning of the first film. That was Laurie Strode's older sister, so she's the younger sister of Michael Myers, and that's why he came back on this very night of Halloween and why he was going after Laurie Strode and her friends. And that really adds another element to it. I didn't necessarily need to have a personal element, but it was kind of a cool angle that later on gets played in the sequels, and especially in the 7th installment of H2O Halloween 20 years later. But yeah, that's pretty much the basic story. Now my thoughts on this, it does add a lot more sex and gore and just gratuitous type of scenes, which is not bad for a horror film, but something's definitely missing and it doesn't feel like the same film as the first. And again, part of that is because of John Carpenter's rough time writing the script. He even admitted this. And not only that, Rick Rosenthal wanted to make it more like the first film. And John Carpenter made a good point. Pretty much, Halloween inspired the slasher genre. So what happens? Other films come out. Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street. Stuff like that. They start getting more gory, more violent. Slasher. And John Carpenter was worried that it wasn't going to make that much at the box office if he didn't have a couple of scenes of nudity and just gory content in there. Which I can understand. It almost had to mimic the films that inspired from the original. So, in that regard, it's kind of a weaker film, but there's a lot of stuff that makes this a solid sequel. It's definitely one of the best sequels out of there, and it didn't make as much money in the box office when it first came out, but it definitely made more money than the Friday the 13th sequel that came out that year, and The Howling and some of the other horror films in 1991. So it definitely was the highest grossing horror film that year, even though it didn't make as much money as the original Halloween from 1978. The negatives. Laurie Strode doesn't get that much to do. Some of the characters are kind of two-dimensional, and it feels like a Friday the 13th type of film, which is not bad for a horror film. It's just that Halloween 1 from 1978 was such a different type of film, and again, kind of had that Alfred Hitchcock suspense. It was really well crafted, where this kind of just feels like it kind of falls into the cliches of 80s horror films. But it's not bad by any means, and it's very rare to have a sequel take place like right after the original. Like it basically starts with the ending of the first Halloween and then the rest is there. So it would make a good double feature. Jamie Lee Curtis has to wear a wig. She had her hair shorter, so she had a wig to make it look longer. But other than that, John Carpenter was still a producer, and he did the score, and it's a very different score. A lot of it on certain interviews, he said it was his mood that kind of changed the score a bit to sound a little bit more demonic and darker with the organs. But I kind of liked it because even though it's not as classical as just the piano theme with Halloween, it's still the same themes, and the synthesizer stuff in there with the organs make it sound really evil and really kind of makes it seem like shit's about to go down in this installment. So if you watch it back to back, it's just a beautiful, amazing, just eerie, just like epic opening sequence. You see the pumpkin, and I love the effect. I love the effect how they just like tear the pumpkin apart. You just see the skull in there. It's just amazing. It's a bit of the same score. Maybe John Carpenter could have done better, but I don't care. I think personally it's an amazing score. It's not the same as the first, but it is the same as the first, and it's something that's elevated, something's different. Which is good because this is a different type of Halloween film compared to the original. So with the theme and music, something has to be kind of changed to for the tone and shift in story to this installment. Music was great. Donald Pleasance is amazing as Sam Loomis. He has a lot more to do. He pretty much gets to shine. He is just superb. Every frame with him is just pure brilliance. And Donald Pleasance, not only in the first Halloween and this Halloween, but the rest of the sequels that he was in, he brings a lot of gravitas to it. Jamie Lee Curtis, for the 25 minutes she's in, does fantastic. She's pretty much the same Laurie Strode from the first movie. And I kind of like it because she is still a fighter. She's running for Michael Myers, but she can face him too. And there's a lot of good scenes, especially where she shoots him with a bullet. And that whole ending scene with the fire getting started in the hospital and it blowing up was just insane. And Mr. Sandman's song was just brilliant ending. Kind of has a dreamlike element to it with the fog in the morning, with Halloween morning. And that was pretty much the end of the story. For now, before they had 4 and 5 with the return of Michael Myers. So after this, John Carpenter pretty much ended the Laurie Strode, Sam Loomis, Michael Myers triangle. This was the end of the story for a while before the sequels. And it was really going to be the end of Michael Myers. So that's why when Halloween 3 was made, it was Season of the Witch. It was a totally different story because John Carpenter imagined it to be an anthology series, which is interesting because now you have anthology series on television such as American Horror Story and stuff like that. So I find that very interesting. It kind of is a throwback to like the old Tales of the Crypt pulp comics and stuff, how there's different short stories in the horror genre. Dana Carvey, yeah, Garth from Wayne's World actually has a cameo in this film. That's crazy. But yeah, this is definitely one of the better horror movie sequels. Maybe it goes up there with Friday the 13th Part 2. Because in Friday the 13th Part 2, they introduced Jason. But like, Freddy's, like, A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge really just kind of like threw away the rules of the first and just is something totally different. Where this one, even though you have a different director, John Carpenter's still producing, he writes it. May not be the best story, may not be the best follow-up, but it works for this story, and it at least feels like the first film in some way. It feels like it's in the same universe in that same night, even though it took a couple of more years to film it. But other than that, I really, really like the sequel. My weakest points, besides the content in that, is again the way Michael Myers moves. Stunt Double's not bad, it's just that he doesn't move like Nick Castle and he seems rigid. It doesn't feel as menacing as the way Nick Castle moved in the original Halloween. But if I had to give Halloween 2 a score, what would I give it? I would give Halloween 2 a 4 out of 5, an 8 out of 10, and a B+. It is one of the better sequels. It's not as great as the original Halloween, but it definitely is good on its own and is one of the stronger sequels. This, along with H2O, are one of the stronger sequels in addition to Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. Those are my personal favorites. And Halloween's almost like a choose-your-own-adventure with the way the story goes, but if you just want to watch a couple of them, you could go to Halloween, Halloween 2, and then to Halloween H2O. You could pretty much do that with just a Laurie Strode trilogy, as I like to call it. But yeah, if you need something to check out this Halloween, definitely during this season, check out the original. And if you want to see like a good sequel that's like, I mean, it's not as good as the first, but something that's at least comparable, near the same level, then definitely check out Halloween 2. It is one of the stronger horror movie sequels. There's a lot of sequels, like 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, whatever, the second films that aren't really as great. You usually have some weak second entries. In any film genre, but especially the horror movie genre. You either have a sequel that's really good, elevates it, and then afterwards it's like Saw or Friday the 13th where they just keep going. Or you have something like Nightmare on Elm Street where the second one was just like, what the hell? And then you finally get back on track with Dream Warriors. Halloween actually has a really good sequel out of the gate. So yeah, this could be pretty much the end of the Halloween story. That is just my quick review and thoughts. It's an excellent film. Cinematography, everything is great. The beginning with him killing people is just really intense, and there's still a sense of dread. And I think it's crazy with the gore. There's some crazy scenes, like with the nude nurse taking a shower and he like basically burns her with the water, with the temperature. Or like the guy with the morphine shots and he stabs it into his eyeball. Crazy stuff like that is just really kind of on the edge of your seat. It makes your heart beat really fast. You don't necessarily need it. Like the first film had some stuff, but they didn't need it. But for some reason, it makes Michael Myers seem more threatening. And again, with the theme and tone, it matches because in this one, as like a culmination of what happened in the first, shit's going down. And originally, this was going to be the conclusion, and it definitely has that vibe of a conclusion. So yeah, 4 out of 5, 8 out of 10, and a B+. Definitely check out Halloween 2. It is one of the better horror movie sequels, and you wouldn't be disappointed in a way. New York Times says here, actually, Halloween 2 is good enough to deserve a sequel of its own. By the standards of most recent horror films, this, like its predecessor, is a class act. And I couldn't agree more. So yeah, that's my review of Halloween 2. If you haven't seen it yet, check it out. And if you have seen it, what are your thoughts on the film? What did you like? What did you didn't like? Do you like Halloween 1, 2? What are your favorite Halloween films? Which ones do you not like? I don't like Halloween Resurrection. That should not exist. It's like Freddy vs. Jason after a new nightmare. Except Freddy vs. Jason was a lot better in that regard. But like, yeah, I don't know what's up with that. Just like you have good 7 films that kind of bring it back to the original, and then there's like an 8th movie that just should not exist. But yeah, what are your favorite Halloween films? Whether it's in the Halloween film franchise or Halloween films in general. Anyway, that's it for this episode of The Final Cut. Let me know your thoughts. Like, comment, subscribe. Check out my other videos on my channel, and go to my Dark Knight of Steel channel if you want to look for some music videos. In the meantime, this month of October, I'm going to be having a lot of horror movie reviews. So stick around to get to see reviews of all the Wes Craven Scream films with 2, 3, and 4. All the Nightmare on Elm Streets that are remaining with 2 through 8. And then also you'll get to see reviews of the Underworld series. I'm going to have one each month leading up to Underworld Blood Wars. As well as 2 reviews for Interview with the Vampire and Queen of the Damned. Anyways, guys, that's it for The Final Cut today. I hope you have a great day. And yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, check out Halloween 2.